Welcome to Stoked with Megan McPhail, the podcast that helps you get super effing jazzed about your work, life, and bank account. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become a seven-figure business coach, entrepreneur, and elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on inspiring others to do the same. Are you ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind and start going after some big, bold dreams? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail.
And your co-host, Todd Reedy.
And I'm really excited about today's episode because it's all about grit and why it is the key to being a successful entrepreneur, essentially. And it's going to be awesome. But first, what the F is grit? So grit is essentially a combination of passion and perseverance. And it really plays a huge role in overcoming obstacles and staying committed to your long-term goals. So it's essentially like people with grit and entrepreneurs with grit, when they are faced with obstacles and challenges, instead of quitting or giving up or making excuses, they power right through and they get over those humps and dips and whatever horrible things might happen. And they keep going and they pursue their dream and they achieve their goals. So this is super important, especially because I have some experience with this. I have a lot of experience with being gritty, and it's important to develop grit within yourself as an entrepreneur because building a business is not smooth sailing. It is not just going to work out in your favor all the time. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be things that come up that are hard or even horrible or even traumatizing. Life throws crazy curveballs all the time. There's always going to be things happening where you have to course correct or pivot or push through. And that's why grit is so dang important and why I want to talk about it, because I think you can cultivate it. I think you can grow grit in becoming gritty. And sometimes it can be a mindset, truly. So I want to talk about passion, because a lot of times it's passion plus perseverance. So you're passionate about something and you persevere to achieve this thing. And passion is one of these words where I've been kind of I don't really like that word, because I think I was passionate about animals, so I became a veterinarian, and that sucked. So passion could be one of those words where it's a little, but I want to break that down first before we really get into grit. So let's talk about passion. So passion, if you really break it down to me, it means you are pursuing something that gives you a sense of purpose and meaning that personally fulfills you. It fills your cup. You can be intrinsically motivated. This is key. You have to be motivated within you when you're passionate about something. You can't depend on extrinsic motivation and external rewards to continue pursuing your passion. You are also, providing a positive impact on the world by something that you are super passionate about. And there's a level of commitment towards your passion where you want to continue developing your interest in it and you want to pursue it over the long term. So I really like kind of breaking down passion in that way, because it isn't just I really like this, so I'm going to do it. It's no, you are committed to it in kind of an intense way. It is your purpose. It is your meaning. You're making a positive impact on the world, and you are intrinsically motivated from deep within. It's not you just want an extrinsic reward like money or fame or success or something like that. People being proud of you or society
accolades
saying you should do it. It comes from within. So not only are you super passionate about something and you're fueled by that, but you have perseverance, which is basically you're able to continue working towards your passion, your goals, your vision for your life, even if there's uncertainty, even if there are challenges, even when there are problems and failures and setbacks, you still keep going. And that's the big part, because the people who face hardships and quit they don't get what they want. The people who persevere and keep going, even when shit sucks, they're the ones that win. They're the ones that achieve their goals. And I genuinely believe that the only reason anybody will not achieve their goals is because either they don't start at the beginning or they quit. So this is really kind of breaking that down into why that is. So I want to basically give one of my stories of being gritty and basically pursuing my passion in the face of adversity and not giving up. And I haven't shared this on the podcast yet, which my parents thought was really odd. Like my dad brought it up that one day. He was like, I can't believe you shared this story yet. And I don't know why I haven't, but this thing that happened to me completely changed my life forever. And it happened 2 weeks after I launched or created Hazel and Lace, which is my elopement photography business. At that time, it was both weddings and elopements, but I founded it or created it, whatever you want to say, started Hazel and Lace in August of 2016. And 2 weeks later, I was involved in a major car accident on my way to work. I was T-boned going like 40 miles per hour by a 16-year-old who was texting and ran a red light and hit me. And at the time, I got a concussion because I hit my head on the window when my car spun around, and I missed a couple weeks of work because of my concussion. I could not really form thoughts or sit in a bright room or look at lights or anything like that. And I did end up having several like migraine episodes after that, which doctors thought was related to the car accident. And I thought that was it. But over time, I started developing pretty severe back pain, which then spread to like this sharp nerve pain that went all the way down my leg. And it turns out that I had a traumatic disc herniation that just continued to get worse and worse. And the pain was unbearable. And I couldn't even walk some days. I couldn't sit some days. I really learned to hate our healthcare system because I was in intense pain. I couldn't work. So I had to basically go on medical leave from my job. Well, first I was working while in pain, and the technicians would help me because I literally couldn't bend over to tie my shoes. And here I am, an ER vet who needs to be able to like do CPR and do all this crazy stuff. And like, I can't bend over. I couldn't pick anything up. If I sat down, sometimes I couldn't stand up right away. It was like, I would just be like locked in a sitting position. And sometimes if I was standing, I couldn't sit. So it was truly awful. And the pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. There were times I would go into the ER and they trusted that I was in pain right away because my heart rate and my blood pressure were like through the roof. And I would be crying and I couldn't feel my foot. But because I wasn't incontinent, they would just put me on pain meds and send me on my way. And so I had to wait long periods of time for an MRI, long periods of time for a neurology workup. And it just took a long time before I had spinal surgery. And by the time I had spinal surgery, I was so like, I had been dealing with the pain for so long that I was like Googling limb amputation because I was like, I just want to get rid of this leg. Like, I can't take it anymore. And I was also like, if I wake up from surgery and I'm paralyzed but pain-free, that would be amazing. You know, like I didn't care what the possible bad outcome from that surgery was, which would be being paralyzed. I was like, that's fine as long as this pain is gone. I was on every pain medication imaginable. And I was building my photography business through this whole thing. Okay. And when I could, I was working overnight shifts and 12-hour shifts at the emergency hospital. But the best part of my life during that time was my photography business. Like being in the mountains, even though I was in such intense pain, those were the best times of my life. So being able to kind of step back from my veterinary job and pursue my photography job, like it really showed me how much I loved photography, despite it being really freaking hard during that time to build my business. So essentially, the whole time I'm building my business, I'm in intense, excruciating pain and just going into more and more debt because of all my medical bills. And like I had a shit ton of medical bills. So we're not only are we talking about physical issues, monetary issues, also like traumatic issues. Like it was scary for me to drive at that time. Like I would hear like the crunching metal and I'd get these intrusive thoughts like, oh my God, if I even like sneeze, then I might accidentally hit something. Like, so anyway, it was just a really difficult time for me. And I got my surgery in October of 2017. So I was like dealing with all of this for like a year while I was building my business. And then they wouldn't let me come back to work after surgery for a while. There's like a whole bunch of miscommunication, which really freaking pissed me off. So I was supposed to have 2 months of recovery time. I ended up having 3 months of recovery time after that. And I like just worked on my photography business the whole time. I could only really like lay down or walk. Like sitting was really hard for me. So I would just lay down in bed doing blogs and setting up styled shoots and all sorts of things, updating my website. And yeah, so I built my business through all of this. And that was the hardest time of my life. And I still suffer from chronic pain in my back and my neck because I woke up with neck issues after my surgery. So that's another thing. So yeah, essentially I had like a neuropathy going down both of my arms into like my pointer fingers and thumbs. And that was awful to deal with after surgery. But I dealt with all of this while building my business and I was able to quit in October 2018. So a year after my surgery, I was able to quit veterinary medicine completely, despite taking a lot of time off, racking up bills, all that kind of stuff. The money aspect was really, really hard, but I freaking did it. And the reason why I got through all that is because of my grit, my resilience, my perseverance towards working towards a goal. Having some time away from being a vet made me realize how much I didn't want to go back to it. And I remember during that time just being so thankful that I could walk, that I could hike a mountain. I was just so thankful. And sometimes I lose sight of that these days. Like I really should still be thankful for my body and what it can do and all that kind of stuff. And that's just to show that like everybody has shit going on. A lot of my coaching students, like there's kids at home, there's deaths in the family, there are spouses who get laid off. There's always some bullshit happening in their life. And that's going to be true forever. There's always bullshit happening, like there's always shit going down. There's always reasons why we could give up and quit. It would have totally made sense for me to just watch Netflix and relax after surgery instead of working so hard on my business. But I chose not to do that because I felt I was intrinsically motivated to go after something else. What are your thoughts about that, Todd? Because you've heard me tell that story before.
Yeah, so back to the grit thing. So like, yeah, it was hard physically, mentally. And so like, what do you think you took out of that? Or like, how does that still manifest in your day-to-day or like as you go forward building more and more businesses, more successful things? How do you display that grit from that experience?
I mean, well, and I think the reason why I was able to get through that experience was because I got through other hard things, like vet school was hard. I mean, even college is hard, there's just like my internships were really hard. So it's like, if I can do that, if I can do all these other things, I can do this. So I already kind of knew that if I pushed through, I could make it. At least that's what I kept telling myself. And it would have been easier to quit, but I wanted an out from my job. And I had already started the momentum in this business. So I just kept going with it. And there was just something in me that wouldn't let me stop. I was just so passionate about it. And I remember, the only time I was pain-free was when I was shooting weddings and elopements, which sounds weird because it's also really painful to shoot those things. But my mind was so focused on something that I was so passionate about that I just didn't think of the pain. So that's kind of also like what helped get me through was, I don't know, it's almost like my body telling me to keep going. I don't know. It's really weird, but I think that I've just had so many things where I just kept going and it worked out, that that's what I did in this case too. I was just so dedicated to making it work that the money, the pain, the issues, the obstacles, like I just kept pushing through them.
Yeah. And you built like a mental toughness that then you carry forward in all the things you do now.
Yeah.
From how sucky that was, that, yeah, you've kind of built up that callus of, yeah, it's not always smooth sailing. You got to grit your teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. Like any successful entrepreneur will tell you, like, that's a lesson you have to learn, that you have to have that mental toughness. And it's not just going to be smooth sailing. And you're going to have to figure out a way to get through these things to accomplish your goals. And I think, like, also I had my goal at that time was I wanted to book elopements all over the country so that I could live in an RV and travel to all of them. That was just this idea I had in my head. I remember posting it on Instagram. I remember saying it out loud at a workshop. I just had this idea that that's what I was going to have happen. So I wasn't going to stop working towards that just because I was in excruciating pain to the point where I wanted to chop my leg off.
So another part of grit that you didn't include when you were talking about passion and perseverance, what kind of perseverance, is like consistency, right? Mm-hmm. So like you have to continue to show up, right? You had to continue to shoot stuff. You had to continue to go into your vet job when it wasn't comfortable. You didn't want to do it, but you did it over and over again.
Yeah.
So a consistency part of that also builds that callus of, I'm tough enough to do this.
Yeah. I can do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says. Yeah. With my coaching students, a lot of times I tell them, like, I don't want it to be as hard for you as it was for me. I don't want you to struggle as much. I want it to be easier. But that doesn't mean it's easy. And I think it's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn when they're building their business and they think all they have to do is post on Instagram and all of a sudden people are going to come running, and that doesn't happen. And you do have to do things you don't want to do. And you do have to find the time when you're working another job or dealing with a loss in your family, or you have crazy kids running around. Like, you have to find the time. And those are all skills that you need to learn to be successful. You can't skip over those parts. You can't skip over the mental toughness parts. And we should actually talk about that a little bit, because you have to work on that stuff. Like, you have to work on being gritty. And I have like a whole list I kind of want to go through that. Through some mindset shifts, through some practice, you can become more gritty, and you have to. Like, you can't skip that part, essentially, to be an entrepreneur. Like, I can teach you the strategies and stuff, but like, you have to overcome obstacles. You can't bypass that. And the folks that are struggling because things aren't quite clicking into place yet, I'm always like, okay, what lessons do you still need to learn about this? Like, there's some lesson in this that the universe or whatever is trying to teach you before your business takes off, and you have to figure that out.
Yeah, I've heard that the saying that you learn more from your failures than your successes.
Yes.
Right? Because successes, you know what works, and so you can keep doing those things. But learning and like taking stock and like learning from a failure will make you much more successful in the future. So there's positives from bad things. And we talk about it over and over again about different things being experiments, and you try things, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, then you learn something and you're better off the next go around.
Yeah. You can't bypass making mistakes. You have to get uncomfortable and experience some of these things. So in order to build and cultivate a more gritty mindset, you, for one, need to embrace a growth mindset or an abundance mindset, where exactly what you said, where your failures and setbacks are more opportunities to learn and grow, instead of something that's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm a failure, I should quit. And I don't even want to call them failures. They should always, like, these setbacks or things that don't work the way you want them to, it's always just an opportunity to learn. So that's for one. Also, being very clear with what your goals are, what your vision is for your life, because you have to be working towards something. You have to see the road ahead of you, realize these setbacks, these obstacles, these issues are just bumps in the road as you're heading towards this goal. Because if you don't have a set goal, you're going to be like, well, this isn't going to work. I can't make it work. I'm going to quit. And also, cultivating resilience is huge. Being able to bounce back from failures and setbacks is huge. That was one of the things I think I learned a lot from being an emergency vet, which I talked about in one of my previous podcasts, was I was always able to kind of reframe and reflect on things and not wallow in some negative things. So cultivating resilience and being able to reframe things and strengthen yourself is just like a huge part of grit. Also, surrounding yourself with supportive people is huge, because a lot of us that are pursuing businesses, we're surrounded by people with regular jobs, working 9-to-5s, wanting job security, quote unquote. It's easier to quit in those circumstances when we don't have somebody cheering us on, which is why being part of like a group or a community or mentorship can be really, really important to help people keep going. Because I've talked people off the ledge so many times when they're like, this isn't working, I'm going to quit. And I'm like, okay, well, but Karen said the same thing and now she's making 6 figures and so did so-and-so, like this is often a feeling you have right before a breakthrough. And without them knowing that, they might have quit. If somebody didn't step in and be like, no, like keep going, trust the process, you're almost there, they might have quit and never seen their success. Focusing on what you can control is a huge one too. I think a lot of people want to control the outcome of something or want to control how people respond to them. And like, that's not what you can do. Like sometimes you just have to accept that things are out of your control and only focus on the things that are under your direct control. That's like another skill. And embracing discomfort is another huge one to kind of like cultivate your gritty mindset. Anytime you go out of your comfort zone, you're going to get stronger because of it. You're going to grow, you're going to expand. Like every cool thing that happens in life is outside our comfort zone. So being able to really embrace discomfort is huge. And we've talked about this before, but visualizing your end goal and your success, utilizing some visualization techniques is a big part too of, I think, being gritty and like seeing yourself as this 7-figure coach or in your dream house or as a 6-figure elopement photographer hiking in the Tetons or something like that, actually like seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, smelling it, and being like, I'm so dedicated to this vision that, I'm not going to let anything stop me from achieving it. And that's really brings you back to that mental toughness that you need to have to succeed. So those are all the ways you can kind of cultivate your new gritty mindset. So really, if I had to summarize all of those things, it's embracing your growth mindset, which is realizing that you can learn from setbacks, having very clear goals, a very clear vision, a very clear definition of success, and then that mental toughness that you need to be resilient and to continue going after your goals, even when crazy things get in your way. Like for me, my car accident, my divorce, COVID, we had losses in the family, my constant pain that I still have. I'm still not able to bend forward very well, but I still hike up mountains and stuff like that. We just had to take Piper to the vet. I've launched things that have flopped, but you can see like getting through all of those things, I'm like getting closer and closer to my big vision. And when you're considering your market or your industry or something like that, like who's going to be successful in the long run? The people with grit or the people who give up when a problem arises? Obviously the gritty people. So it's not about being the best photographer or even the best coach or any of that. Like really a lot of success comes down to having the most grit, being the most resilient. And sometimes it doesn't happen on your timeline. Sometimes it doesn't happen when the mortgage is due. Sometimes it doesn't happen the way you want it to. Sometimes you have to go through some really uncomfortable mindset shifts. But if you keep going, if you're passionate enough about it, then it's going to all work out. You're going to figure it all out. It's going to work. Do you think you're gritty, Todd?
I think I'm decently gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some grit.
Yeah. I think you're still searching for that thing that you're like super passionate about, or your purpose.
I would agree to that. But I think that I have like the resilience that I've built up from my opportunities / failures and hard times. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like your grit and your mental toughness is from like a lot of physical stuff, like playing soccer, training for triathlons, doing an Ironman. Like that's fucking mental toughness right there.
Yeah.
You know, I did CrossFit for a while before my car accident, and that helps you realize like, oh man, I can get through anything. If I can do 100 burpees, I can get through anything.
Yeah.
If I can do an Ironman, I can do anything, you know? So yeah, those are all important things to be a successful entrepreneur. And I would like all the listeners to think now, like, how are you developing your grit? Like, how are you building your mental toughness? Are you facing challenges and problems, and are you pissed about it? Are you complaining? Are you finding excuses for why your business is never going to work out? Or are you like, yes, this is an opportunity for me to problem solve, to grow, to learn some important lessons, to get over this hump. I will be better for it. I will be powerful after this. You know, like, how are you viewing your bumps in the road, your setbacks, you know? And I think it's really important to consider that. So thanks so much for joining us in this episode. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Stoked with Megan McPhail. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring content, check us out on Instagram at Stoked with Megan McPhail. And to learn more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you quit your 9-to-5, visit my website at meganmcphail.com. I hope this leaves you feeling stoked. See you next week.